We're now going to take a look at how you can get information about your stored procedures. So one of the easiest ways to do so is to come over to the Object Explorer window and then locate the database you're in, go down to the Programmability folder and find Stored Procedures. Here you can see the stored procedure that I have created, add values. Let me scroll up a little bit. So here's the current code I'm using, and you can see that it lists the parameters, value 1 and value 2. You also see that it lists a returns integer. Now, that is something that's always included in stored procedures. It's implied. We can actually put code in later to be explicit about what we return, but one thing that we'll see later on is that it always returns an integer. However, for now, we can just ignore that. Now from this window, you can actually do a variety of things. You can highlight the stored procedure. You can say you'd like to modify it. It will show you the code that was used. It may also add a bunch of other code that you really don't need, but it's still free code, so it's not so bad. You can right-click on it and say that you'd like to execute the stored procedure. When it comes up, you can put in some values that you'd like to test out and say OK. And it will actually show you the code that is used to execute the stored procedure. So that's kind of nice too. If you would like to script it out as a create, alter, or drop statement, you can do that as well. And if this stored procedure was dependent on an object, let's say I had a stored procedure that selected data from a table, then the dependency option here, object dependency, would show that. That would be handy. So some good stuff in there. A lot of times, though, you just go ahead and instead of using the user interface, you just go straight to working with code. And there are a number of good things with code. One thing is you can look into the sysobjects view, which shows metadata about all the objects in the database. There is a name column, so I can focus on the stored procedure I want specifically and see that it is indeed a procedure type and the creation date. Now, in this particular view, there are some things that are occasionally handy, but for the most part, the name and the ID are probably the most important ones, followed perhaps by the creation date. Another one that is a little bit more useful is the syscomments view. Syscomments allows me to see the text for views and stored procedures and functions and check constraints and a variety of things. In this particular case, I see my stored procedure, and once again, I can filter it out, but I have to do so based on the ID. There is no name column, so I can use the object ID function to extract the ID from the name and focus specifically on my stored procedure. Now here you'll notice that there is text for the human to read, but there's also compiled text for the computer to read. The computer doesn't really care about the human-friendly text, but it does care about the compiled text. That's the one it uses to work with the stored procedure. Because basically a stored procedure is a saved collection of one or more SQL statements. It's a named collection of one or more SQL statements. You execute that set of statements by name, it runs the code. Now, I can also get an overview of the stored procedure by using SP-help. We've used SP-help on tables before. We can use it on views, we can use it on functions, and of course we can use it on stored procedures. You can see here a nice little report telling you the creation date, the name, the type, a little bit more fleshed out. Basically, it's probably using the same tables that we just looked at. It's just presenting it a little bit nicer. You can also see the parameters that we use, the data type. The length is, float has a fixed length of up to 8 bytes of data with a precision up to 53 decimal points, so a very large number. You can also see the text of your stored procedure. So SP-help text will show me the text I put in there. It respects the carriage returns that you put in your code. So let me scroll up a little bit again and take a look at that. I have a carriage return here and here. And you can see that for each carriage return, it captured that and presents it as a different row of data, different row of text. So that's a nice little view, kind of handy. I can use that code by copying it here, opening a query window and pasting it, and then taking a look at the code. Now you can do this with Microsoft's stored procedures as well. Microsoft stored procedures start with SP underscore. They actually have been recommending and asking people, please don't make your stored procedures with SP underscore. I still see people do it. I'm not sure why they didn't get the memo, but don't do that. I usually just put a P there. I don't use SP. It doesn't seem to be needful. A V for view, F for functions, or P for stored procedures seems to work perfectly fine for me. But again, Microsoft's is SP underscore, and they have help. If I want to see how that code works, I could actually use SP help text, and I can actually see the code that Microsoft's using, which is kind of fun. You can see it's going through and using various different things to extract data from the system, and occasionally looking at how a Microsoft programmer did something might give you some inspiration about how you might do something. So it's a nice feature that you can actually look into Microsoft's actual code and see what's going on. So lots of ways to get information about the database from the system, and hopefully that will give you a chance to explore some of the databases you already might have. For example, there is the Northwind database that we've been playing with, and there are some stored procedures in there. If you'd like to go and look at those stored procedures, you can use the functions or tables I just showed you, or stored procedures or tables I just showed you, or of course you could just go through and look at them through Object Explorer and see how they wrote that code. Again, sometimes that comes in handy. Okay, next on the list, we're going to take a look at stored procedures and how they are used for transactions. I'll see you there.